It's such a long story, I don't know where to begin. Let's start with this.
What'd you do that for?
Ranma's a girl now.
Ranma Saotome is the prideful, sly, and competitive protagonist of the obscure series Ranma 1/2. He takes great pride in his masculinity, often losing his temper the moment his manhood is brought into question.
Don't you start talking like a girl! Who you calling a girl? I'm a guy!
So you can imagine how Ranma, a cisgender male that thinks very highly of being a man, must feel after learning that he's been cursed to turn into a woman whenever he's splashed with cold water. Throughout the show's run, we see Ranma go from hating his female form to embracing it, but never truly accepting it. He experiences a number of advantages and disadvantages a woman might experience in her day-to-day life. And though his cunning mind never changes, his pride certainly does.
I'm a guy, okay? There's no way I'm gonna let you dress me up like a girl, so forget it!
But all your clothes are in the wash. It's only for a little while, Ranma.
What a babe! Whoa, she knew!
Step right up, boys. Get your okonomiyaki.
Gimme, 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 gimme!
Just a heads up, this series came out in 1987, so you can bet there are a lot of social values that don't hold up very well today. I'll only be addressing the ones I believe are relevant to understanding Ranma's character. Along with that, this show's not for kids. I won't be showing any of the more risque segments, but I wouldn't recommend the show to any children. I'm no expert in gender studies, but I will do my best to discuss this topic without offending anyone. Personally, I think Ranma's story is an interesting take on gender, and how cultural and familial traditions define it differently. But how is that possible? How does Ranma's really regretful road trip redeem him from his rowdy and rampant manly pride? Revelations of a robust and riveting second life? Or rhetoric that randomly causes some reflection? Ready, set, analyze. There's not enough people with originality, so here I am to save the day, Jaynalysis.
Hey, martial arts? I can do that. If it's got martial arts in it, I can do anything. We've got him, Akane. We can beat him for sure now.
Just as soon as you learn how to stand up.
One of Ranma's most definitive character traits, besides his ego, is his knack for martial arts. Throughout the show's run, we see firsthand how well he's able to adapt to any combat situation. This is particularly notable because the martial arts in Ranma 1/2 are pretty bizarre. You have martial arts figure skating, martial arts tea ceremony, and my personal favorite, martial arts rhythmic gymnastics. Even without training, Ranma is able to adapt to things pretty quickly. A big reason for this is because of his hereditary fighting style, labeled Anything Goes Martial Arts. You'll notice I said hereditary. Ranma's macho man pride can be attributed to more than just him being vain. You see, Ranma is the heir to his family's legacy, and because he's an only child, his family's reputation and expectations for success are all put on him. No pressure, right? This is taken to the extreme when it comes to marriage. 16-year-old Ranma Saotome is engaged to not one, not two, but 3 women, none of whom were by choice. In fact, Ranma doesn't even love any of them. At least that's what he says. His fiancées clearly show interest in him, in different ways, mind you, but the minute one of them starts losing interest in him, Ranma goes out of his way to try and win back their affection, only to stop showing interest shortly thereafter. Yeah, Ranma's not perfect, but believe me when I say he does have plenty of redeeming qualities, many of which I feel are brought on by his curse. Though I'd never say that Ranma objectifies women, after all, his engagements weren't his choice. It is interesting, however, to see Ranma's distaste for being objectified while in his female form.
So what's the deal? Are you gonna introduce us or what?
We give you our word. Oh, we'll be so polite, we promise. We'd never do anything to hurt that other Ranma. We'll treat her like she's our sister, just like a sister, I tell ya.
Come on, cut it out already.
Hey, back off, pervert! Hey, what are you doing? Stop it! Cut it out! Let me go! Stay out of my business and put me down. I don't need your help.
Oh, I can't do that. You still owe me. A reward for saving you earlier, remember?
Get lost.
Quick reminder, if Ranma is splashed with cold water, he turns into a girl, and if he's splashed with hot water, he turns back into a boy. Because of this, he can freely transform as long as there's a water supply handy. Some of the characters don't know about his curse, so they think his female form is a completely different person, and you can bet he takes advantage of this. Early on in the show, Ranma is ashamed of his female form, only intentionally using it to avoid embarrassment in certain situations.
Here we go.
Figure skating is just too embarrassing as a guy.
This slowly evolves into him using his female form to take advantage of men.
Hey, you good looking?
Leave me alone.
Say, how's about a cup of coffee or something?
I don't know. Is it your treat?
Sure.
Then in that case, I accept. How far away is your boat?
Ranma, what is the matter with you? Have you forgotten you're a guy?
Oh no, I haven't forgotten.
You're a guy?
Bingo!
Until finally, Ranma begins to realize how beneficial his female form can be in combat, in more ways than one.
If you turn him into a girl first, he'll be less powerful.
Sure, my power may go down when I'm a girl, but have you forgotten how fast I get?
Put your clothes on!
Huh? Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, you can look now.
Right, here I go! Ranma, that's no fair! Don't you have any modesty? What kind of girl are you?
Ultimately resulting in Ranma taking pride in his female form. Because Ranma had to relearn what it's like to be comfortable in his own body, it took his ego down a couple pegs. His so-called cursed female form actually forced him to reevaluate himself and his opinion of women. Something worth noting is the fact that even in female form, Ranma still refers to himself as a man, which makes sense. After all, he identifies as a cisgender male. He doesn't even bother giving his female form a different name.
In this corner! Excuse me, miss. What did you say your name was?
Ranma Saotome.
Hey, should you use your real name in this?
This is also true for the characters that know about his secret. Whenever they refer to Ranma, regardless of which form he's in, they always use male pronouns, unless they want to insult him. Interesting. There's even a whole episode where Ranma believes he was born a woman, which opens up a whole other discussion. If you'd like to hear my thoughts on it, let me know in the comments below. Another notable character trait about Ranma is his irrational fear of cats, brought onto him by his traumatizing experiences with his father.
Let's test that theory, boy.
Are you crazy?
If you can stun the bees without being stung, then you'll be safe from the breaking point. Those bees were tougher than I thought.
The closest person to Ranma is undoubtedly his father, Genma. Every talent of Ranma's can be attributed to his dad's hard-as-nails training. More often than not, Genma would turn every bad situation they encountered into a training experience, which led to both Ranma's curse and his irrational fear of cats. Genma claims to have done it for the sake of his family's martial arts legacy, but it doesn't take an expert to see that Genma ruined Ranma's childhood. Sure, he succeeded in turning his son into the greatest martial artist, but at what cost? Despite being relatively laid back, Ranma has a tendency to miss social cues and just say whatever is on his mind, regardless of how it makes people feel. To make matters worse, Ranma's dad is the reason why Ranma's been engaged to so many women. Earlier I mentioned him only having 3 fiancées, but the truth is, those are the 3 we see regularly. There are a few other fiancés that only show up for a single episode. Why? Because Genma sold his son's hand in marriage.
My boy and I are starving. I'll do anything. Please just tell me what you want.
If you give me your son, I can bring him up to marry my daughter. Huh?
Throw in the rice and pickles, and he's all yours.
Sure, one could argue that Genma's master was Haposai, so of course he's going to be a bad parent. But unfortunately for Ranma, his terrible home life doesn't end with his father.
Nothing can beat your mother's home cooking. Huh?
So what the heck are we waiting for?
I promised her I'd raise you to be a man among men. If she finds out our little secret, she'll force us to commit seppuku. Still want to go home for dinner?
Earlier I said that Ranma doesn't go by a different name when in his female form, and that's true, unless he's with his mom. Because of his father's promise, Ranma's mom wouldn't accept Ranma having a female form. So usually, Ranma just stays in his female form, affectionately named Ranko, to avoid dying. Ranma really can't catch a break. The few glimpses we get of his school life are also quite telling. He went to an all-boys school where lunches were chaotic, and though it's never stated, Ranma didn't seem to have any real friends at his old school. And unfortunately, that doesn't change at his new school. When Ranma thinks back to his childhood, he only remembers having one friend that didn't reciprocate those feelings.
I won't let that Jack beat me.
This game was your idea? And watch your mouth.
Good old Uchan.
Ranma Saotome is an interesting character to say the least. It's always interesting to see such a prideful character be taken down a couple pegs, but imagine a character who's so caught up in his masculine pride being forced to live the life of a woman. Unfortunately, the series doesn't touch on the topic of gender as much as it could. If Ranma 1/2 were ever to get a remake, man, I'd love to see what they do with it. Because Ranma isn't the only character that has an interesting gender dynamic. Ukyo and Tsubasa, anybody? Along with that, I'd like to mention that in the first 3 seasons of Ranma 1/2, both his male and female form are voiced by women. All the music used in this video is actually taken straight from the Ranma 1/2 soundtrack. As you may have guessed, I'm a pretty big Ranma 1/2 fan. Just make a video game or something, it'd be so awesome! Anyway, you know the drill. Be sure to follow me on Spotify, Instagram, and Twitter if you'd like to keep tabs on me. If you're already subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to my backup channel, Jaynalysis Jr., in case anything bad happens to this one. And finally, please take a look at all of the merchandise. If you have any ideas for merch, let me know in the comments below. The links to everything I just listed are in the description below. Until then, I'll leave you with this.
What'd you do that for?
What'd you do that for? What'd you do that for?
What'd you do that for?
What'd you do that for?
What'd you do that for? What'd you do that for?
What'd you do that for?
What'd you do that for? What'd you do that for? What did you do that for?
What'd you do that for, Akane? Hey, what'd you do that for?
Get your hands off me!